Hi there guys, my name is Cadence and thank you so much for checking out this bullet journal video. Welcome along to my September setup. The theme I've chosen this month I feel captures quite nicely the transition from summer into autumn, and I'm going to be using some stickers that are of pressed flowers because I kind of feel like that really captures the feeling of it not quite being into autumn yet, but kind of seeing the things that you've preserved over the summer months. Sadly, I didn't actually press any of my own flowers. I did think that this design would lend itself quite well to that, but when I went to have a look in my flower press, I realised that I didn't really have anything in there that sort of matched the colour scheme. So that's probably something I will save for a future setup. So this time I am just using some stickers that I already had in my stockpile. So my front cover page is going to be a big polaroid across the middle, and I've drawn quite a bold black line to outline it, and then I'm cutting out the centre to make a little window right in the middle where the picture would be, and I'm going to be using some very thin acetate to sort of make that window that I can then stick my PET stickers to. I actually did something really similar in my September journal last year. I had a black bullet journal at the time and I cut a window out, but for that one I used mushroom PET stickers and then sort of made this really fun woodlandy mushroomy arrangement, which was really cool. I really like that one. So this is kind of an evolution of that design. So after I cut out the acetate to fit the shape of the window, I then went about arranging my stickers. So I knew I wasn't going to make this one too busy. I wanted to kind of layer things up but not have too much overlapping. So on the acetate, I'm just sticking one of the stickers down of the floral element and then one butterfly, and that is the top layer. And then once that was stuck down, I used some very thin double-sided tape to stick the acetate to the underside of that page. I actually really like the simplicity of just those two items on the front, but I am not that minimalist. I can't leave it. So yes, I definitely went in and made some additions. So on the page underneath, I had another two stickers that I wanted to put on so that they could be very slightly layered and create decoration for both pages. So I added another floral element and another butterfly. I also added the title, and I kept it down to the bottom right hand corner of the Polaroid because I kind of felt like putting it central kind of made it look like a title, whereas like putting it off to the side kind of made it feel like it was an actual Polaroid with just like the date scrawled on there. So once the sort of picture element of the Polaroid was done, I then wanted to add a little bit of decoration on the front page. And I think the colour match with the pen that I've got with that sticker is almost spot on. They complement each other so well, they're a very similar tone. And I just did a few sprigs of leaves in the top and bottom corners. And then to complement that, I just added a few strips of different washi tapes. And I absolutely love how this front cover turned out. It's so pretty. And yeah, just really kind of captures that end of summer feeling for me personally. The next page is a bit of an elaborate setup. I'm using it as my gratitude log. If you saw my last month's video, I was very much going for simplicity. I needed everything to be done quite quickly, and this month I am returning to form and making my life difficult. So because this one had a window essentially on both sides, the centre of the pages weren't really usable. I was kind of thinking about what I could do around the edges, and back in my July setup, for my gratitude log, I decided to do lots of random sized and shaped boxes. I really loved how that one turned out, and I actually really enjoyed filling it out. I don't normally fill out every single day of my gratitude log. There are usually some days I forget and I skip, but because I enjoyed doing that one so much, I didn't forget, which was really cool. So I thought because this is a bit of an odd shaped page, I could fit all of those small boxes in around those two middle windows. So I started off just doing my title, and I used just some brown craft paper and used some alphabet stamps. And instead of using black ink like I normally do, I decided to use a brown one that I have. And again, that just fit with the sort of warm toned theme that I was going for, which is really great. And all the titles I'm doing are just these sort of little collages stamped out on that piece of paper with lots of little washi bits all around it. And also you can see on this page I am trying to cover up where those ugly bits of tape are with like just random bits of washi tape, kind of hoping they don't look too strange. I did map out the 30 different boxes beforehand, just so that I could make sure everything actually fit, but that I could also leave a few spaces here and there for bits of decoration. On the right hand page that shows underneath the front window, I originally thought that maybe I would try and put a quote on that part, sort of between the flowers, and then I thought it might look quite interesting and romantic with some sort of nice calligraphy showing through to the front window, but I wasn't sure about it because I really loved how those two were working together, and I quickly scrawled out something on a piece of scrap paper and cut it out and put it in the gap just to see what it looked like, and I was not loving it. I really was worried about ruining the aesthetic of the front cover, so I decided to ditch that idea and just leave it blank. So it does look a little bit odd on that page when you don't have the front cover showing the sort of two elements, but it's fine, it's fine. I still like it. The next page is for my calendar spread. One of the things I really like about using the square journal is that you can get quite a big calendar to fit on one page. Quite often with the portrait A5, B5 ones, you kind of need to spread them across 2 pages, which isn't a bad thing, it's just different. But yeah, I quite like having it all on one page like this and still having decent sized boxes to be able to write in. The actual boxes are 4 by 4, and I just left one row above each one to write the date in, and I highlighted it again with that sort of peachy brush pen. Of course, I give it a title in the same way as before with my stamps, and I just added some decoration all around the edges. These pressed flower stickers are quite large, and generally I would struggle to use something that big in a lot of my scrapbooks and things like that, so it was quite nice that I had plenty of space around all of the setups in this page so that I could add the bigger stickers, because they just kind of end up staying in my craft stash for ages because I can't find anything to do with them. And again, I love how this page turned out. I really love those leaves, and yeah, it really feels like the beginning of autumn to me. My next page is for my to-do list, and I started off with a little decorative element that I wanted to do. So in the bottom right corner, I wanted to do a little mini Polaroid, and I just did it exactly the same way as I did the front cover. I just cut out a little square, drew my Polaroid shape, and then cut out a piece of acetate to fit the gap perfectly. It was a little bit trickier to get this one right because I didn't have as much space on the other page behind, because that's for my trackers and habits, so that's quite a busy page behind there, so I'm just trying to fit it in. And I put one of the butterflies on this one, again with the idea of having something behind it to show through. And just to stop the page being a big massive white block, I highlighted every other line with that brush pen to give it a bit more dimension and just to sort of tint the page to match the tone of the whole setup. My habits and trackers page is quite a busy one this time. After I made my title, I had my plant watering tracker underneath, which I kind of do as a long graph. I have all of my plants listed down one side and the numbers going along the top, and then I just tick off the days that I water the plants so that I don't end up underwatering or overwatering anybody. And I will sometimes do my habits the same way in that sort of a graph, but this time I felt like doing individual calendars again. Partly because I thought it was a great opportunity to draw them inside little Polaroids. So I had space for 5 because of course that little window is down there in the left hand corner. And I made the Polaroid windows 7 by 7 because you usually have to have them as a square to sort of really look like a proper Polaroid. And of course there's 7 days in the week, and then I had to go 7 down, but I only had 6 kind of rows to do, because with the days of the week at the top, and then 5 weeks. I could have made it 7 if I'd put the title inside the middle of the Polaroid, but I really wanted to utilise that sort of border around the Polaroid to make it look more authentic, I suppose, and match in with what I've done with the front cover. So the title is just jotted down at the bottom to one side. And then again, I'm adding some decoration around the little Polaroid window, trying to cover up the ugly sticky tape again. On to the next page, and this setup is for my memories. Quite often I will leave that as a blank page just to allow myself to write however much I want and sort of arrange it however I want. Some months I have loads of things to write, and some months I don't have that much to write, so sometimes it ends up being really full and then sometimes it ends up being a bit empty. This month I thought it would be fun to give myself some boxes to write in, and of course that allowed me to continue with the Polaroid theme. So I sketched out 3 little Polaroids, and I kind of put them at slightly jaunty angles to each other, but of course I had to make sure I was overlapping the correct bits and not drawing lines on top of lines, because then it wouldn't make sense. And I did all of that correct, but unfortunately one of the lines I was drawing, my hand kind of slipped off the page a bit and it went very wibbly wobbly. I did try and go over the top of it with a white gel pen, but it was just a bit too dark and it wasn't covering. So I decided just to cover it up with an extra piece of dot grid paper. So anytime I cut bits out, like from the front cover, I can essentially use that stuff again to cover up any errors that I may make. The decoration on this page, of course, followed the same theme as all the rest of it, but with that flower sticker that I was putting down in the right hand corner, I was just making sure that I was lining up with the Polaroid on the previous page so that the flower showed through nicely behind the little butterfly. Okay, and the final setup is of course the weekly spreads. This time I decided to do something I've actually not tried in a bullet journal before, and I was kind of thinking the square journal gives you so much more space to do stuff on. I decided to try out some time blocking. I've used time blocking plenty of times before. I quite often do it for work, and I have done it in my journal before, but usually I've added it in later, like I've decided maybe certain days that I want to sort of plan my time out a bit better, and I've sort of added that in afterwards. But I thought I would try and put it in from the very beginning and see how much I utilise it. So every day I've given quite a large box, and then underneath the title I've done a small column where I've put each hour of the day in from 8 until 9 in the evening. I am not an early bird, so although I may wake up before 8, nothing productive gets done before 8, so I've decided not to bother putting in a time before 8, and I am usually fairly productive in the evenings as well, so I've gone to 9 o'clock aiming to sort of finish for 10. In the larger space, that will just allow me to assign a task to every hour of the day. I've got quite a bit going on in September and I've got a lot on my to-do list, so I think doing the time blocking will help me be as productive as I can for upcoming deadlines. The decorative element of this page kind of didn't really go to plan. Down the right side of the pages, I was gonna try and do tabs, but I was going to make them miniature Polaroids, but unfortunately I did not measure everything out correctly, and I did actually do the first one as a little Polaroid tab, and then after I'd cut everything out and I flipped the page over, I suddenly thought, oh my gosh, this design doesn't actually work with the size boxes that I've marked out. I would have had to make them a bit smaller to fit in and for the tabs to work visually, and it just kind of looked a bit of a mess. So I was like, oh no, what can I do? But I was really lucky, and that right page was like a center page that I could easily rip out without causing any damage to any of the other pages or the rest of the journal or anything. So I just ended up pulling that one out and starting again. So I only needed to do Wednesday, Saturday and Sunday again, and then just alter what I was going to do for the decoration. And that is my September setup done. Although I loved how quick and simple my last month's bullet journal was to set up, I feel like the complexity of this one is much more what I'm used to, and I do really enjoy coming up with ideas. So I'm glad I had a bit more time to return to that way of designing things this month. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope this has brought you a bit of inspiration for your own journal. Feel free to leave a like or a comment, and consider subscribing to my channel for more arts and crafts and bullet journals. Thanks so much again, bye!